So good morning, good afternoon, good day to wherever you are across the world. My name is Tom Garrett, and I'm the Secretary General of the Community of Democracies. Let me welcome you to this discussion on Mali's transition back to a democratically elected government. Today, we are fortunate to be hearing from people on the ground about the challenging priorities facing Mali. These challenges include holding free and credible elections, combating impunity, and establishing in the future a fair governance for all of the country's territories. We hope that today's discussion is going to inform the many friends of Mali in the community of democracies on the transition as it's seen from Bamako. Before I turn to our speakers, let me just say that if you have questions for the speakers, if you would please write them in the chat box, we will come back to them later during the question and answer period. Our first speaker from Bamako is Mr. Musa Kondo. Musa is a journalist and a civil society activist, and he was founder of the weekly newspaper L'Express de Bamako, and he also serves as the country director of the Accountability Lab Mali. The Accountability Lab Mali encourages youth inclusion in society, good governance, and it supports honesty in public service. Musa has a master's degree from the University of Bamako, and he also studied business and entrepreneurship at Dartmouth College in the United States. Musa has many distinctions, but one of them is he was chosen one of the 500 most valuable young African leaders as Mandela Washington Fellow of the Young African Leaders Initiative. He also has been active for a few years with the Community of Democracies, and he spoke to our extraordinary governing council meeting at the United Nations 2 years ago. So Musa, would you please take a few moments and share with the people who are listening what progress and challenges you see on the transition back to democracy in your country? Musa.
Thanks so much, Thomas, and hi, everyone. I'm really happy and honored to be here in this panel to talk about Mali and what's happening right now, and what are the most challenges we're facing right now and coming back to democratic process, and also what we think about the future of our country and also the entire region. Because as you know, we cannot separate Mali and the realities of Mali in what's happening in Sahel region in general, and also in other the other bordering countries. So I'm really happy today because having a platform like this, talking to community of democracies, is more than an honor for us. Is a learning process, is also a sharing experience, so we can put in place to anticipate on what may happen in other places, and also how to sustain or stronger our own realities here in the country. So this is a more than a pleasure for me to speak here today. So as you may know, I will not just take since 2020 military coup. I will continue back to 2012 when Mali faced the first, the biggest challenges in the past 20 years as in terms of democratic process, and all we can say about citizen engagement and also security issues. So back in 2012, when protests start happening in the country, it was from what we call the lack of trust between citizen and the government. And as we know, at that moment, the president, the former president, the former Amadou Toumani Touré, passed away a couple of months ago, been explaining things how it has been hard for a country like Mali, with a large country in the middle of Sahel and Sahara regions, to face the security issues, which is not something typical to Mali, but also a larger part of terrorist groups, a large of the traffic, all kind of traffic, and all kind of things converging to Mali, where it is not our war. This used to be has own wars. This war is not. This problem is not our own. So it creates a lot of frustrations. And when it happened a couple of months before the end of his last term, a military coup happened. So when this military coup happened, Sanogo, Amadou Aya Sanogo and his colleague took over the power, and there was a lot of pressure from the international community. And what we experienced was a lot of pressure to organize the election, even though what made the military coup happen, we did not care much about that. So we just rushed to elections so we can come back to international processes. We can get collaboration with international other organizations, but we did not brainstorm a lot or much around what made the coup d'etat happen in 2012. So we organized a quick organization elections, which bring Ibrahim Boubacar Keita as a state of country. So with this, it's like we just decided to continue the process, but without understanding what happened to get us there when we got a military coup. So the same thing start happening because one of the failure of democratic process in Mali for me and for as we can notice is a bad governance. Bad governance when people are not feeling part of the system, when people are victims of corruption. And when you take the presidency of Ibrahim Boubacar Keita from the first day until the military coup of August 2020, you would understand we've been through more than 10 incredible corruption scandals. When I say scandal, it's like high-level scandals of corruption, where government officials were engaged, where people very close to president, as his own son, who been elected deputy in the national parliament and become the president of a defense commission in national parliament. So there was a huge corruption around military things. And the same moment, we had like a lot of killing of our soldiers in the front and in the northern regions, where the government in the rush signed a peace agreement in Algeria, which is not possible to implement in reality in the field. So we faced a lot of things, and the feeling of population and citizen in general, where we do have all these things happening, but the other part of this, the country managers, the leaders are just having fun in in a boat on the sea land, like and a lot of videos been sharing all around these things. So this grow such the frustration of people, and the protest lasted for like 6 months in the street to say we need change. We don't want our children to be killed, civilians displacement from refugee camps. Some arrived in Bamako, some arrived in Mopti, and from the northern region, the insecurity and problems established in the central area. So as we know, this ended by a military coup in August 18th, but from that moment to where we are right now, as I would start about the question itself, is how this transition is happening and how people are, how it is inclusive. So this is the main, and my point of view, and civil society also, because we have a lot of people and groups of civil society putting together as a consortium to focus much more on different aspects of the transition. Understood from 2012 military coup, from 2020 military coup, the main problem was the problems linked directly to election, the problem of governance. So how to get there, how to get out of this through this transition to build something really strong and really powerful. So whoever will come after this transition will be the choice of Malian population, will not be guided by the military who are in transition leaders right now, would not put a system to control the government or to control the entire country after the transition. So one fact is everyone was agreed to not involve politicians during the transition, because we know and we are aware they will be preparing the elections after the transition. So when you put them whatever position they will be or must be, people will just see in that like they are preparing their own coming back after transition, then focusing on technocrats are the ones who have not been in the system, or the ones who are really with a lot of credibility, and also in which people might entrust the most. So with such kind of government, I will not go deeper in women participation, as my colleague Fatih will come back on that. But one of the biggest challenges we have is the militarization of the entire transition. So since the military arrived in power, we've seen it is kind of a nomination of friends and colleagues in higher position, administrative position, military position, and even diplomatic position. So now they are so taking over the transition. We are now at the point, say, are these guys really want to go after the targeted time of transition? This is a big question now, and this is pushing a lot of pressure and a lot of frustrations among the different stakeholders. Secondly, the problem of election. As we know, when military coup happened, it happened first. The protest started first when the presidential election happened in 2018, the second mandate of Ibeka. So we all knew there was a lot of protests after that, when the late Soumaïla Cissé was not agree with the result because of massive fraud, because of non-transparency at all. But after 6 months, 1 year, with a lot of support, with a lot of conversation all around, they've been together around the same table, say, okay, we will organize this, but. And then the same thing happened in 2020 election, March and April parliamentary elections, when we have seen people nominated, not elected, because we've seen some who have not even been elected in their own area have been, as we call, the list of 30 bad elected officials. So the ECOWAS intervention and support was like, you should cancel the nomination or the election of these 30 officials so we can find a solution to move forward. But unfortunately, Ibeka did not see the solution through this way. So when the military coup happened, everyone was like, we should not organize the election as we used to do, with about 4 different steps before we get the result. As I said, the Minister of Administration, la CENI, Commission Nationale des Élections, la DG, Direction Générale des Élections, and Supreme Court. So that means like 4 different institutions intervening in organizing election. So one of the main recommendation, every single stakeholder is aware, is we must have a unique and very unique organ or institution for elections. So that means since before, during, and after elections, so this organization takes care about everything. So until the military coup happened, we are not seeing a lot of progress at this point. So we have seen military and the junta doesn't want a unique institution to organize the elections. And the ministry is still taking like the control of everything. Instead creating this unique and one institution, they're creating another commissions to facilitate and to have like the future president and the future deputy in the national parliamentary. So this is creating one of the most and biggest challenges of this transition for the moment. And I'm sure I may be answering the questions of the participant, but to stop here and telling this one last opinion is with this willing to control the election and to control what may come the future president, the future government, the future deputy, we are really in a higher risk to return back to the street. As we have already seen, the M5 leaders start having conversations, still having meetings, still writing to international organizations, say, look, you guys, you've been here, we agreed on this, on this, on this. And from the August and now, we are spending like 5 months, like 4 months, turning around things which are really not important. But the most important thing is, which is to organize transparent, credit, and acceptable elections for everyone at the end of the transition, is not happening at all. So this is a huge signal to every Malians and also to every single institutions in international community to understand what's happening right now and what should we do to anticipate. So at the end of the transition, we will not face a problem where people would not be agreed on who should organize the election and what the result of the election should be. So I want to stop now before and really happy to take questions. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Musa. That was a fascinating set of insights. I'm sure that was very informative to our participants. Our next speaker is Ms. Fatima Al-Ansar. And Ms. Al-Ansar is a political, international relations, and gender analyst in Mali. She has a series of notable achievements, but among her many achievements, Ms. Al-Ansar is the founder of the Tilwalt Girls Peace Network. And this is an organization that you need to know about. It seeks to create a network of young women and girls, peace ambassadors in Africa. And it does this through intensive training in peace building, leadership, mediation, negotiations training, entrepreneurship, and community-based activities. Ms. Al-Ansar has written extensively on issues around women and girls, peace and politics, security and education. One of her most important articles, The Feminization of African Politics, has been translated into 8 different languages. She studied at the African Leadership Academy at Trinity College, Vienna University, and she's an Oxford Human Rights Fellow. She was also the MasterCard Foundation Scholar, and she's the youngest Michelle Obama Young African Women Initiative Fellow. And so we're very pleased and honored to have her with us. And so if I may turn this over to you now, Ms. Al-Ansar, to share your thoughts on the inclusion of women in this process, but also the transition in general, please. You may be muted. There we are.
Okay, thank you so much for this beautiful introduction. And I'm very honored and happy to be here. And I think this specific webinar is very important, especially we see around a lot of miscommunication and misinformation about what is actually going on underground in Mali. A lot of people don't have like the direct information. And I think this is an opportunity to actually give people and lovers of Mali what is actually going on in Mali so that they can see how we can actually better work together to assist our country. And I think Musa have given a very beautiful background about what happened before the coup d'etat and what happened during the coup d'etat. And I think I might not want to touch that again and to avoid any repetition because he did a very beautiful job on that. But I think I will be touching more about the inclusivity of the transition itself and how are like the role of women in the transition and which kind of role have been given to the women from the beginning of the transition, from like the coup d'etat to the beginning of the transition. And I don't know if you guys have heard about there is a law, a quota actually reserved for women, which is a quota called Loi 052, which is a quota that allows women to have a 30% place within the government. And right before the coup d'etat, there was a big improvement on that because the president Ibeka was able to actually give 28% of seats of women within the parliament. And was a big achievement, and I remember myself, I wrote an article and saying that this is a big improvement and we are hoping that we will reach the 30%. Unfortunately, that haven't been followed right after. Women have been left out right after the coup d'etat again. They have not been given a role, even within the putting place of the transitional government itself. And that was actually already a big sign, because if you don't have women within within even the transitional discussion put in place, the government itself, it's a sign that we might not have enough representation of women. And we have even see within the negotiation of ECOWAS mission coming to negotiate within the actors of the coup d'etat, there haven't been a representation of women even in that delegation, and that's also have given a sign to even like the actors of the coup d'etat on like the role and the role of women within this transition. There was only one woman that came, and she came once or twice, which she was the president of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ghana. So she came, but all the others were only men. So there were a few very discussions around the inclusivity of women within the transition. And myself and 3 other women, we were part of the scientific committee. So there was right after the coup d'etat, they have created what we call the scientific committee. And the scientific committee was working on writing the chapter of the transition and also writing the term of references of the national consultation. Because we, before putting in place the transitional government, we have organized what we call the national consultation, which was supposed to be very inclusive, which is supposed to be including women, young people, civil society, political leaders, to discuss about what we want the transition to look like. What do we want in the transition? How long do we want the transition to be? Which kind of leaders do we want within the transition? Again, it was very surprising to see that there was a very few representation of women within the national consultation. There was a very few representation of actually actors, political actors, and civil society leaders within, which has strong voices within the national consultation. So you can already imagine how the final documents actually looked like. So the final document did not mention the first draft, because I was among the people who wrote the first draft of the chapter, has mentioned specifically giving a role for women within the transition. But the final document that came out, I have noticed that actually was off. They deleted that. So from the chapter itself, the representation of women wasn't there. So when the government was put in place, finally, we have noticed that there is only 4 women within the government, 4 ministers. There was only 4 ministers within the government out of 25. And that was very shocking to a lot of women activists, women politicians who have been really working so hard in advancing the gender inclusivity within the government. So they decided to protest. Women went on the street, they protest. They have really shown their frustration about the putting in place of the government. So the prime minister decided to meet those women activists, those women political leaders, and talk to them. So he has promised, okay, we understand that we have violated the law, the quota on women representation within the government, but we promise you that within the National Council of Transition, we will go beyond the law. So we will respect the law and even go beyond that. So that was a promise that he has given to the women activists and the women leaders in Mali. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Right now, in the National Council of the Transition, we have 32 women, and out of those 32 women, only 100, and it's like 121 members, and only 32 are women. So it's around 26%. So we haven't even respected the quota. And that was actually one shocking result, because the government, people were frustrating that the former regime was not respecting the laws, was not doing what the population actually needs. But the first thing that this transitional government did was to violate laws that are in place, because that's already a sign that this transition is not here to make the change that they were promising that the population is needing. Because if you violate a law that is in place and you are talking about impunity, you are talking about anti-corruption, but all those come with respecting law that are already in place. So that frustration keep happening, and apart from that, there is a lot of ongoing conflicts still happening within the northern region, within the center of Mali. There is a killing happening every day. There is a disappearance happening. There is a rape. Even not long time ago in the Ansongo region, there have been women, a lot of women, young girls going to school have been kidnapped. But there is not a lot of information about that. People don't talk about it. But the inclusion of women in the peace building process have been so low and shocking. And knowing the fact that women are the one who are mainly affected by conflict, but their voices, they haven't been given any role within the peace building process. They haven't been giving role. There's a low representation of women at the Algerian talks. Since the adoption of the agreement, there is a low representation of women in the implementation mechanism of the peace reconciliation agreements, and there is no effective application of the law 2015 on gender. And if you look at first of all, the CSI is the peace agreement that was signed in 2015. Today, since 2015, there haven't been any women taking part. There was only one woman, and she only stayed for 2 months. And after she went be in the former government, in the Ibeka's government. But in the actual women activists and women leaders were able to fight, and finally we have women taking seats within the peace agreements, within the peace agreements. Meetings, we have 9 women out of 29. So it's still very low. It's 31% of women taking seat on that very important peace agreement, talking about the progress of all these agreements that have been made in Nigeria. The Commission of Truth and Justice and Restoration, there's only 5 women. Out of today, there's only 5 women who are members out of 25. Who are men, and usually most of the cases that the CVGR receive are cases of rape, violence against women. So it's mainly on women cases, but the representation of women on that is very, very low. Secondly, the National Committee for Disarmament, Demobilization, Reintegration. That's even more shocking. There's only 1 woman out of 38. So it's 2% of women representation. Not without forgetting also the operational mechanism and coordination. There's only 1 woman out of 700, which is in place, which is actually operating in Gao. If we talk about, since I have given like the statistic on the transitional government, the National Council, the CSA committee, there's also the Interior Authority government. There's a very low representation of women in that side as well. Like the level of rural commune, there's only within 30 rural commune, there's only 60 out of 210 women. And if you look at the level of 3 circle as well, there's only 9 women out of 33. And even more shocking, the special advisors to the government, there's only 2 women special advisors out of the 12. So it's like 16%. So there's a lot to do in terms of like representation of women within the government. And plus that, it's not only the crisis of the insecurity. Since last year, Mali has been going through a lot of instability, political insecurity, but and then the COVID-19 also have played a big role on like discriminating women participation fully within the transitional government. And the statistics have been showing that 79 companies have experienced a decreased loss of income and affecting 83% of women, and 66 were the men. And most of the loss were, there were more loss within the women income compared to the men income. and plus 30% of the business reporting receive government assistance since the start of the pandemic, more than women reported receiving such assistance compared to the men. The men receive around 34 and the women 26%. So even in the assistance in terms of like fighting against COVID-19, there have been advantage more the men than the women. So I don't want to be talking a lot. I know we have a lot of time to talk about Q&A, but I think really for Mali to be fully a democratic government and reach a long-lasting peace, we really need to include women at all levels of governments. We need to have them at the decision-making table. We need to have them at all the peace-building mechanisms. We need to have them very active in the organization of the oncoming elections and have them take roles in the local governments as well.
Well, thank you very much. And the numbers that you outlined for us are very sobering, and they clearly require a lot of improvement. And so I appreciate you sharing that information that I think was not necessarily easily available to people around the world. To both of you, as I'm listening to you talk, one of the things that really comes through to me is this need. We often hear this term, build back better. And I think we're very much in this situation where we saw that in 2013, there was a push for elections, but there wasn't necessarily an attempt to address the root causes of what led to that conflict, and that we need to build back better this time if we're going to see inclusive governance, if we're going to see people in the North as well as people in the rest of the country, all included under a better system of governance. You know, there's always the question, and we have the question before us now, what can the international community do? And I think very often the answer is apply pressure, continue to engage. I don't know if you can say anything, either of you, more specific. What can the international community do to support not just Mali's transition, but to support the important work that's being done by civil society? Musa, do you have any thoughts about that question?
Yeah, thanks so much, Thomas. This is a great and important question because for me, this is the main and key things right now. In the past, in 2012, when the military coup happened, we've seen like the suspension of a lot of collaboration with Mali. People have suspended Mali. Mali has been banned, and all the kind of sanctions you can even imagine. And for me, this was really not helpful, because for me, when such kind of things happen, it is the moment where the country needs the most of help and support from international community. Because for me, it is easy to make an entire life of with the checking boxes. Say, yes, you do this, we check it and we continue. For me, this is not a way. And we've seen the willing of Malian people and behind the African people for change. We see this every day. And the main problem we have is our leadership and our leaders. So when such kind of things happen and you suspend the country or you ban the country, you will not hurt these leaders. You will make more pain, more damage to populations, because they are the ones who need help. They are the ones who've been in the street for like 6 months for change. And it is not the change for free. It is not as during the protest against Ibeka, where I was really active as a person, as an individual, and I heard a lot of conversation between what is legal, what is not legal, what is you know. For me, when the constitution is not serving people, we should change the constitution. We are human beings, and the laws we put in place to make our countries, our state move forward, rule our countries, should represent us. It's not, when we say we should change, the protest started. The protest was not because we elected you, we don't like you today, we chase you. No, but there was a huge corruption. There was a huge bad governance. And these are facts. These are not because people love you or people don't love you. So when a country with a really low revenues as Mali, we cannot support as people living, buying houses in the US, buying houses in Canada as official government officials. It doesn't make sense. So when you suspend, you ban or whatever you do with this country by stop the collaboration, stop the support, you will not help the country get out of it. And it will be a cycle. We've seen in 2012, the military coup happen. And everyone was like, okay, Mali, now you're not part of us. You're not part of, part of what I love and appreciate from the community of democracy is when 2020 military coup happened, there was a process to understand where are we going, what's happening in Mali, and how we can support it. So some other government and institution just stop, say, we don't have conversation with you. But when you have a targeted ban against individuals, this could be understandable. And also the willing of people to move forward for better governance, for better social justice, for better inclusion, I think is a good fight. And whatever it happens, people get something nice, something good to lean on. Because corruption today is not just about economical fact. When we talk about our areas of the world, our part of the world, it's not about economic fact. It's killing the hope of people. When you see like hundreds of young people, thousands of young people, millions of young people working towards desert, going to drown in the sea because they want to reach Europe, it is not because they don't have food today. It means they don't even have hope, like tomorrow they can have something from their own work, from their own labor. If there is no such kind of justice, if there is no such kind of things which create hope for these thousands of people, they will still keep engaging with extremist groups, because for them, whatever their missions are, it could be like for political goals, it could be independentist, it could be religious, it could be economic, it could be social. We will always have these groups capable to recruit among our communities, recruit our young people, because these young people have no more hope. There are no more trust in the government. There are no more trust in the system. So instead of being part of the system, they will always fight against the system. And this will not be helpful. And for me, the role of the community, the international community, is how to support the real change in our countries. We've seen recently the case happening in Senegal. It's just an example. We know it's ethical things about rape, but we see like everyone sees like 99% of political pressure, then rape situation in the court. So now the Senegal has been able to stop it, saying, okay, we understood what you mean, whatever you explain it, but we free Sanko. So it calmed down the situation, but today they must still keep burning in Senegal. This is not our hope and our willing. But the international community should be in a position to anticipate, not sit and watch. In Mali, it took like 6 months. Every Friday we had a protest in the street, and the protesters were just no more corruption, no more killing, no more this, no more that. But no one been in the floor say, oh, we should look at what's happening in Mali, and we should say the government is our partner, of course, but when you see millions of people 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, you should say, if we don't work this out in 1 week, in 1 month, it should end with a military coup, or it should end by a massive killing, which is not anyone's choice. But for me, this is the way the international community can really play in anticipation, then sanctions after when things happen.
Oh, very powerful words. Thank you. Ms. Al-Ansar, did you want to add anything to that?
I think Kondo has like touched most of the important points, and I think I'm gonna just go back to touch a little bit on what he mentioned about closing the borders. I think that has been something that really, there have been a lot of debates about is ECOWAS, the international committee, and especially ECOWAS, is ECOWAS here for the people, or is ECOWAS here for the government? So there have been a lot of debate around that, because sanctioning, closing the borders, where most of the economic activities happen without the ECOWAS country, have actually contributed a lot on what is going on actually in terms of like poverty within the civil society and within the women businesses, because most of the women work in the informal sectors. They will go around the borders, they will travel, bring their businesses and come inside. So if you close the borders, thing you will do, you will be impacting the activities of those women, and there will be more victim of violence. There will be more victim of being economically dependent on their rapers. What the international committee can do in time of crisis, especially in countries like Mali, is to be closer to the civil society, to actually talk to them, actually ask them for their needs. What do you think we can help you to better go through out of this transition? What do you need, not what the government needs? And that's very important. They can do that by working on joint projects with the civil society on activities linked to the transitional government. Like right now, there's a lot of discussion on one bodies of organization of the election, how the election should be happening. The government have been in place since 7 months, but there haven't been real activities happening around the organization of elections. So there is a clear sign that this election might be not happening on time, because they haven't been focusing on organizing the election. And there is a sign of a big instability that might happen very soon in Mali, because we see Imam Dicko when he was talking about how unhappy he is with the running of this transition. And when Imam Dicko usually come out, it's not a good sign usually. So what the international committee can do right now is actually approach the civil society and see, okay, what can we do so we avoid another crisis? They shouldn't wait until now there's people on the street, there's blood, then they will try to intervene and stop that. So now is the moment for international committee to talk with the locals, not only locals in Bamako, but locals in the different region of Mali, and see how they can actually help Mali organize the election on time and elect very democratic leaders that represent the voices of young people and the voices of women within the country.
Well, thank you. And if I could just ask, because, you know, I've been fortunate to visit your country a few times, and I come away always so energized by my interaction with civil society and with the people of Mali. Just the enthusiasm and the desire for freedom and the aspirations of the people of Mali. What are some of the bright spots that you might see at the moment that perhaps we don't get to see in the rest of the world? To me, I see the engagement has not wavered, that people in Mali are still fighting every day for a better future. But I just wonder if you have any positive bright spots that you might share with us. I realize how many challenges there are. Either of you, Musa? You're a bright spot to me, Musa, and I've been very inspired by you, and actually by both of you just today. But what can you tell us? What are some of the things we can look for that brighter future for Mali?
Yeah, Fatih, do you want to start with it?
No, I will let you start, and then I will follow.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks, Thomas. Yeah, you know, one of the most incredible thing we have here in Mali is the resilience of the people facing the challenges. Because when you take Mali, I mean, we sometimes see it as the government is, I mean, the stopping point from people, from the population to get to the next level is, as they said, how you use a stone to make it a crushing point or a stepping stone. It all depends on how you perceive how it is. And facing the systematic corruption in the system, I mean in the government, the bad management, bad governance, and all that, and you put population in this and all the opportunities they can be in, like engaging in armed groups, engaging in extremism group to make their living. These are so easier things to do than staying in the right lane and hope for a better future. And it is not a way, it is not a word. People have been showing this since decades. They have selected, we prefer being in our poverty with corrupt officials that decided to move to the other side of the line. Fatih mentioned something for me. This is incredible, important, and could really make the difference. For example, when all this crisis happening right now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Look, all this crisis happening now, why don't we put around the table of negotiation the ones who are victims, the ones who have lost everything, the ones who just want to return back to their villages, not who want to be minister in the government after negotiation, not the ones who want to be ambassadors, not the ones who want to be whatever you want, but they just who are living in the refugee camps, who have lost everything, and who just, the peace for them is just returning back home. So why don't we put these people around the table and negotiate peace, and not the ones who are gaining or who are obtaining a position or a financial situation after the peace agreement? So if we don't understand who are taking advantage of the problem, then who are victims of the problem, we will not get the same result. Because if I'm taking advantage of this crisis, I will not willing it to end. Because if it ends, it is the end of my business. This is what we're facing right now. And the population understood that, because they understood wherever you go, you say, oh, we already know the music, because we know you are all fighting, because at the end of the day, you will be part of something. When we've been active during the protest, a lot of comment like this get back to us, like, oh, you guys as a young persons, we know when you fight for something and when it happens, it's not for the country, but for yourself. And some been still showing this to us. But among all these problems, population still keep pushing and hoping for the change. But to make this change happen, we should all, wherever we are, the ones of international community, civil society, government officials should push in the same direction with the same willing for change. And for me, this would be the great start for really and the real change we expect.
Well, thank you. That was very well stated. Ms. Alansar, would you like to add anything?
Yes, for me, I think I would just add to what beautifully Kondo has already said is the positivities of the Malian people and how they can just take challenges and transform that to something positive. For instance, there's this festival that we call Festival du Désert. It's a festival that they organize each year in Timbuktu. Unfortunately, because of the conflict, they have to stop organizing that in Kidal and in Timbuktu, because right now, with the whole insecurity within the region, a lot of people don't really travel there for festivals. So they decided to do the festival within like different region, and in another region of Mali. For instance, they just did 2 weeks ago a festival in Kilikoro, where they have actually transformed the whole Kilikoro near the river. They have transformed that, and it looks like a real desert. And they brought camels. They brought this whole idea of unity, peace. When they brought artists, rappers, talking about their frustration, but in a very peaceful way. So I think arts and culture, it's something very beautiful that Malians are so good at doing and bringing people together. Because when there's a lot of like injustice happening, there's a lot of intercommunal violence happening, because these terrorist groups within the northern region and central, they are trying to use this whole idea of like Malians not liking each other, putting like ethnic group against one ethnic group, So those arts activities and culture activity actually bring Malians together. Last week, they organized what we call the DB Festival. So DB is like the meats griot, the meats. So they organize this whole festival where they bring like all kind of meats, where Malians come together and eat meat and celebrate. So despite all this injustice, instability in the governments, Malians try to find hope in arts, in culture, in social activities, so that they can really come together and still have hope. Because if we lose hope for this country, I think we will actually not fight to bring back peace. So despite all the challenges, we still need to have hope, and so that we can better fight all these challenges that are going on.
Well, thank you. And I think those are wonderful expressions of optimism and resilience. For us to probably conclude the panel, we've come to really the end of our time together. And I just want to thank the two of you, Fatima, Musa. I think you've brought information that was not readily available to most of the people who were listening to us today. And so I want to thank you for the work that you do in your country for freedom. And I want to thank you for sharing that with us. And I want to thank all of those who joined the discussion today from around the world. We all have a role to play in supporting the men and women of Mali in their return to democracy. And so thank you again to everyone. I look forward to hosting more discussions on this subject in the future. And until we next meet, the Secretariat team here in Warsaw and myself, we hope that you stay safe and that you stay united. And we look forward to seeing you again. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. And thank everyone. That was wonderful. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Great job, you all.
Thank you.